Forward to Introduction to Fasting 3 Days for Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin and Boris Johnson, and Mr. Neel Farage. Before publishing the introduction to the former and the coming videos, a foreword has proven necessary. This video was made on the 16th of December 2020, and it has taken me a whole month to get it translated into English. During this time, important events happened beyond the Channel and the ocean, such as the signs of a capitulation of the brave in England, and in America, the turmoil of a nation on the brink of disaster. On a Wednesday, some days ago, abused citizens descended into the streets to proclaim their enduring support to the president they had legitimately chosen, a choice of a majority that had soon been discarded by the opposing side, the which was determined to take power at any cost and no matter what, with all disregard and contempt for truth, honesty, and democracy. Things turned out not so good on that occasion, as there happened to be in that place people that were out to cause a stir that could conveniently be blamed on the cheated president's supporters and consequently on the legitimate president himself. Whether the whole thing was arranged ahead of time and caused precisely for this result, and whether it really was done by true Donald Trump supporters or not, nonetheless, the accusing American mainstream medias and the world's echoing them soon let the whole planet know that they were ready to make one gulp of the naughty president who's guilty of being esteemed of his people without condescending to practicing the vile treachery that his opponent was forced to resort to win the game. Treachery which he did and still does quite unbegrudgingly practice, for that matter. I am not out to judge of the troublemakers' political convictions, providing they have any, and whether they were sincere supporters of Donald Trump or not. It is not written on their faces, even though they may have been seen wielding signs that bore the name of the legitimate president. They may just as well hate him. They may just as well have been there for entirely different reasons, and could actually hate him, knowing that their acts of rowdiness and violence are actually more unfavorable than beneficial to the man they say they are there to support. Strange and not so funny way to support a serious cause. Therefore, that is not the point of my comment, and really it is an impossible thing to know of a truth. I am not the one to decide either whether the events happened spontaneously from true supporters of Donald Trump, or whether they were planned and ordered by someone else secretly, for that also, as is just impossible to know. No, really, my point to this foreword is this. In the face of these drastic events, I want to quickly drop a line and draw some attention to a now frequent yet unrecognized phenomenon in our society today, that of the auto-goal. The fact that it remains totally unnoticed of the majority of the general public and unrecognized, unacknowledged by the medias, almost like a taboo, since its dealings are kept secret and unpublicized, all this makes of it a highly successful scheme on the public scenery. And so it goes. Everybody has at least a rudimentary understanding of football or basketball and all such sports. Hockey and cricket work that way too. Well, everyone understands at least that much about them, that while two teams are present on the field, each team must throw a ball into a basket or an area that represents the adversary's territory, and at the same time must guard their own territory and prevent it from being reached and touched by a ball shot by that adversary. It's simple. Whereas they strive to gain points for their own camp, everybody makes all the efforts to prevent the enemy from attaining the same and making their points, their goal, within their territory too. No player in his right mind would purposely send the ball against his own camp, and when this happens, it is usually due to a lack of attention or a clumsy move on the part of the player who messed up. The poor guy then pays it pretty dearly in terms of shame, with reproof and having to endure the irritation of his co-players against him, because he caused the team to lose the game, or at least he contributed adversely towards a defeat for them. Everyone on the teams understands that and does everything in their power to avoid such a situation. That's the game. Well, that's in sports. In sports and in real life, one tries to protect one's camp from the attacking party that represents a threat to it. So it is necessary to play in order to win. Well, that's in sports and in mostly all contexts of life. But it is not so in politics. Indeed, in politics, the practice of the autogol, that some say was successful in Pearl Harbor a little less than a century ago, has made discreet, or secret even, but persevering practitioners again in the last decades. In the presence of two opposing adversaries, it consists of one of the parties, the most crooked one, perpetrating one or more acts of violence against themselves, or a violation of their own undisputable rights, while they accuse their innocent adversary of those acts, imputing the responsibility of them on those who might just as well have had absolutely nothing to do with it. So whereas it is unthinkable in a sports game and is considered a failure and the dumbest thing to do in that circumstance, in politics the practice of the autogol is actually gaining in numbers of enthusiastic practicing partisans. This is generally done to degrade a pacifistic but disturbing movement of protest of a given population against an otherwise non-legitimated power, and to slander the protesters and their cause before the public eye. The general public eye, those people who are not very much involved with the subject and don't intend to be. At the same time, this practice attracts the public sympathy upon the pretended victim and his cause, as well as it provides him or them illegitimately and fallaciously, but quite efficiently, with an opportunity to strike and retaliate with some kind of blow on the accused in return for those allegedly unjust attacks he says he has suffered at their hand. The consequences of this might develop into a war between countries like in the 1940s, or into a very drastic hardening of coercive power into brutal and arbitrary force in a given country that resorts to this practice if it is done on a national level. For example, in France in 2018-2019, with the pacifistic social movement of the JJ, the Yellow Vest movement, policemen of the CRS forces were actually seen and filmed while changing their outfit into that of the casseurs, the breakers or destroyers, and back into their uniforms again, after they performed this, their foul duty of rioting under the usurped and slandered name of the Yellow Vest movement. We all know how the Macronian government power reverted to barbarian brutality in the Yellow Vest movement's repression, the which fallacious legitimation was provided by the violent elements that infested the Yellow Vest movement, totally Macron-backed infiltrations, in my humble opinion. The first time I got this very strong and firm conviction of the use of this practice in our modern history was upon seeing the pacifistic protest movement against the very first World Forum be infiltrated by casseurs, the breakers or destroyers, that turned it into a big riot and actually did nothing else than provide the superpowers with an opportunity to wage, through the mainstream medias, a vast campaign and a totally unfair trial against the pacifist movement of protest. It also provided the pretext that the superpowers were waiting for to harden greatly the armed and brutal repression against any sort of antisocial injustice mass protest. This method has kept being used repeatedly and never stopped being used as a common policy ever since by all dictature-minded and dictature-aimed powers of the West. So is the Macronian government, and so will Joe Biden's government be if allowed to win all the way, as he has already largely proven, without even sitting on the presidential seat. So the practice of the autogol has now made its bed in the societal affairs of the Occident, of the West, most commonly by staging violence and unrest, at best incivilities, to be imputed arbitrarily and without any recognition nor claim from the concerned, on whichever part or just cause is to be degraded and slandered in the face of public opinion. Basically, it comes down to this. The side with the most mendacious and unpopular purpose and aim commandeers and secretly sponsors acts of violence against itself, to be perpetrated right under the public eye in order to attract unto itself opinion, sympathy, and likewise reproof on their usually pacifistic adversary, who know nothing nor have anything to do with the scheme. You follow? It's twisted and crooked, but it works well for the side that stoops to such base and foul practice, since it also permits a strong and coercive reaction on the part of the apparently attacked party. The scheme actually allows a threefold success for them, as we said. The public sympathy it arouses on behalf of the crooked, of unpopular nature, though mostly hidden designs. The degradation in the public eye of the worthy cause of the falsely accused protesters who have nothing to do with the violent schemes that use their movement to commit their reprehensible actions. Those who have to bear the hat after it and answer for it anyway. And the foul but victimized and pretendedly innocent power that can then unfold measures of retortion on the innocent accused and against his camp and his cause. So it's all gain for those who practice intimidation and the vile but efficient method of the outer goal in politics. And of course, you've guessed what I'm aiming at, and what my point is in exposing this theme in the foreword to my introduction to Fasting 3 Days for Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin, and Boris Johnson, and Mr. Farage. My own opinion is worth what it's worth. God only knows what it is. But of a truth, you'll never manage to convince me that the Wednesday events were spontaneous, nor that they were perpetrated by true and sincere supporters of Donald Trump, though they stand accused of having pretendedly committed those acts, causing their chosen president more harm than good. To me, it is obvious that the whole thing is nothing else than an auto goal, and that the White House assaults were caused by the hidden sponsors of those acts, those whom this forfeit serves, in that through it they seem to be justified as they pretend to bring down their hated, honestly and law-abiding adversary, Donald Trump. The events were caused by Donald Trump's own adversary, enemy should I rather say, when you consider the base and vile methods he resorts to gain control of the country. And they are part of the framing plan unfolded by this opponent to gain in false legitimacy and abusive justification towards the success of his disloyal and treacherous scheme unfolding towards that very goal. As for little me, I do not therefore withdraw one word of the explanations given in this video. Having thus said, I persist and sign. Mary Magdalene, Evelyn Monique Jones-Emery. Well, I'll start over this little part. I'm here expressing my deepest sympathy to the American people, in particular to those who voted for Donald Trump because their wish was trampled underfoot. And I know from the deepest of my heart, I know that they were the majority of the American people, and their wish was not heeded. it was fought, and evil won, lying, cheating won. And I express my deepest sympathy also to those who voted for Joe Biden, who discarded Donald Trump. Not that he was a hero, but he could have become one. And The truth is that they think they did the right thing, but they are still under the illusion that it was the right thing to do. But I'm afraid that they will soon lose those illusions, very soon. Joe Biden is only a representative, perhaps you say in English, I'm sorry for my English, it's not that good. Perhaps is a representative of a much larger power, is going to be just a puppet of an underground power that needed him to reconquer what they had lost 4 years ago. So I'm quite sad, but we've got to keep praying for a miracle. It's going to have to be a bigger miracle than the one we thought we needed. The hoax worked all the way. You know, it's not because Donald Trump won that he was wrong. The fact that he lost, put in hyphen in brackets, the fact that he lost I'm here expressing my deepest sympathy to the American people, in particular to those who voted for Donald Trump because their wish was trampled underfoot. And I know from the deepest of my heart, I know that they were the majority of the American people, and their wish was not heeded. It was fought, and evil won, lying, cheating won. And I express my deepest sympathy also to those who voted for Joe Biden, who discarded Donald Trump. Not that he was a hero, but he could have become one. And the truth is that they think they did the right thing, but they are still under the illusion that it was the right thing to do. But I'm afraid that they will soon lose those illusions, very soon. Joe Biden is only a representative, perhaps you say in English, I'm sorry for my English, it's not that good. Perhaps is a representative of a much larger power, is going to be just a puppet of an underground power that needed him to reconquer what they had lost 4 years ago. So I'm quite sad, but we've got to keep praying for a miracle. It's going to have to be a bigger miracle than the one we thought we needed. The hoax worked all the way. You know, it's not because Donald Trump didn't win that he was wrong. The fact that he lost, put in hyphen in brackets, the fact that he lost, or the fact that evil won, doesn't mean evil is right. The fact that nobody wanted to hear the truth and see it, or even investigate, apparently, Doesn't mean that the truth isn't there, even still now, to be found. So those who want the truth will have the truth, and those who don't, won't. Well, so I was hoping really that it could be a much happier introduction to these videos, but because Donald Trump seems to have lost now, doesn't mean my call, I'm not going to express it any differently or push him out. I believe well, I was promising at the end of my longest video that I would, in this introduction, I would give the explanation of why why I'm calling to fast for these three people: Donald Trump, Boris Johnson, Vladimir Putin, and I would add Mr. Nel Farage, and all our leaders, world, our country leaders and authorities. I'll let you watch the video. I'll try to have it dubbed in English, but I'm not sure when I'll be able to do that. So far, as an introduction to this, I want to explain, but I have to do it in French, and I'll put the English version in subtitles. But the reason why I think these three people in particular need our attention, and Donald Trump still needs it, even though he's said to have lost the elections. He needs it just like all our country leaders. It's basically because out of all political figures, those three, or I'd say four people, because I would like to add Mr. Farage to this quest, out of all public figures in the world, these three or four people are showing a particularly laudable, I think you say in English, praisable courage to resist. They cannot fight it openly, because what I'm talking about, this power, this master's power, is difficult to fight, but they resist. They resisted in their own way. They resisted. They have more courage than any other leader whom we must pray for anyway, and fast for anyway. But they have more courage. They have shown more courage to resist the evil that's embedded in our societies. Donald Trump, deep state. Some say he's part of it. I say no, I don't believe it. He's got them on his back, but to have him on your back doesn't mean you're part of it. It just means perhaps you're there, you're compelled to do certain things which you wish you didn't have to do. This is my idea. Take it or leave it. Vladimir Putin has got his own on his side of the world. I got them on my back too, the very ones. Deep state also, naturally. I forgot the name. I don't want to say it. Perhaps I'll put it in subtitles. The name of that main one, the main Russian mafia. And is courageous enough to resist to some point. For example, just an example I gave concerning him. As I was getting acquainted with what the Panama Papers affair was, we found out in all these broadcasts that came out of it at that time, we found out that many world authorities, politicians, had actually had bank accounts in offshore companies in paradise countries. And well, he didn't. So much so that the medias that wanted to really get at him anyway, because you just have to, you just gotta they just gotta say something bad about him. So even though he didn't have any offshore company on his name or any bank or offshore bank account or anything of the sort, they pinpointed and they put him on trial anyway, their sort of trial, that because some of his family had, so it didn't matter if it wasn't him, as long as someone from his family had it. I mean, they give him the bad the bad news, the bad reputation or whatever, in French, it's an Aesop tale, the wolf and the lamb, I'm not saying that Vladimir Putin is a lamb, he certainly isn't, thank God, but what it says, it says if it's not you, then it's your brother. So that was his fault. Vladimir Putin's fault. Didn't have anything in the Panama Papers, but someone from his family did. So it's Vladimir Putin's fault. Okay, just judge of that. And of course, Mr. Boris Johnson also. I don't know if he had any. I don't remember the Panama Papers. I don't remember his name being given there. But his courage is in, and Nigel Farage's courage is in leading the Brexit and really pushing for it. Because when you go against Europe, you go against mafia, you go against deep state. I mean, that's what Europe is all about. We'll talk about that. I mean, I've been very shy so far, not really daring to say things and to express things, but I'm hoping that will change and that I'll be able to just speak more about the things that I'm living, because my family is a mafioso family, and I'm a resistant member of that, but I have no help. If I was Italian, if I was in mafiosa in Italy, my country would help me, but in Switzerland, my country doesn't help me. My country helps them, My country obeys them, so I have no help whatsoever. But that's not the point of this. It's supposed to be just an introduction to my video of fasting 3 days for Donald Trump, Boris Johnson, Vladimir Putin, and Nigel Farage, and all our leaders, local leaders, not political leaders. So that's the reason why I put these 3 people in, especially in light. But of course, we must, Jesus said, pray for one another. So we must pray for the whole world and for all our leaders, even if we're not in England or in America or everybody. We must pray for them. Why? Because if they have some courage, we must pray for them that this courage gets strengthened, And if they don't have much courage, then we must pray that they get courage, that our prayers sustain them and help them to be more courageous. Because it takes a lot of courage to lead the Brexit, to fight for the truth in America, and against the evil that happened there about the elections. It takes courage to dare do what Donald Trump is doing, having obviously everybody against him, everybody except the people, but all the voices that count apparently. And it takes courage to lead a country like Russia, a very big country also, with a very strong mafia. It takes courage not to give in to every wish and whimper that they may have, you know, and with also a large amount of undeserved criticism and defamation, I'd say. So all these people that I mentioned, these four people, and perhaps some in other countries, but especially those four people I know, they are being defamed constantly by the big stream, the mainstream medias. So I'll switch back to French because I have to say the same things in French, just in case for people who do not understand English. There are still quite a few here in Europe. And I have begun in French, so I will continue as well in French, even though I would like to find the time to make these modest videos available both in French and English. I'll see what I can do. If anybody wants to help, welcome. En français, donc. Donc, je vais reprendre plus ou moins ce que j'ai dit en anglais. J'ai présenté donc ma sympathie au peuple américain, qui, pour plus de la moitié d'entre eux, ça j'en suis persuadée, avec une large majorité, a voté pour Donald Trump. Ils sont déçus aujourd'hui. Je suis très très triste moi-même parce que voilà, donc je viens d'apprendre la nouvelle. Je ne sais pas par quelle magie, la supercherie a été efficace jusqu'au bout et Joe Biden va prendre les rênes du pays, mais pas seulement du pays, hein, ça veut dire du monde entier, okay? Parce que c'est ça qu'il vise, et tous ces acolytes autour de lui qui ont fait ça pendant des décennies, c'est ça qu'il vise. Et Dieu merci, grâce à Donald Trump, j'ai appris une chose très très importante et qui me tient très à cœur. J'ai appris, alors que j'étais plutôt dans une mouvance, dire l'Amérique, tout ce qu'elle fait, c'est horrible, etc. C'est la America the Whore, la prostituée de l'Apocalypse, etc. Enfin bref, vraiment, j'ai appris à faire une différence. Je n'aurais pas pu la faire avant parce qu'avant, je ne savais même pas que ma famille était mafieuse. Et donc, j'ai compris simplement que nos gouvernements, que j'ai beaucoup critiqué moi-même, hein, j'en présente à Dieu d'ailleurs, à Dieu, plus qu'aux hommes encore, mais mes excuses, je demande de pardon, parce que j'ai jugé sans discernement, en fait. Et, et je me rends compte, je me suis rendu compte finalement que toutes mes croyances, tous mes ressentis vis-à-vis de l'Amérique, eh bien, il suffit qu'il y ait quelqu'un d'honnête à sa tête et les choses prennent une autre tournure. Et je pense qu'il y en a eu beaucoup plus d'honnêtes qu'on ne peut le ressentir. Parce que nous, finalement, qu'est-ce qu'on avait? On n'était pas vraiment au courant de ce qui se passait sur place. On se rendait compte sur la politique globale, etc. D'ailleurs, c'est ce qui me fait grand souci, parce que la politique globale va forcément se ressentir. C'est forcément les mafias mondiales, au niveau mondial, qui vont se renforcer avec Bidon Joe Biden à la tête, hein, de l'Amérique. Ça va être ces réseaux-là qui vont remonter en force, reprendre des forces, malheureusement. Merci Monsieur Trump, parce que vous avez quand même pris beaucoup de risques. Même si c'était pour votre pays que vous l'avez fait, vous avez été bien clair là-dessus. C'était pas pour nous, mais enfin nous on en a bénéficié quand même un petit peu pendant ce temps. Et j'espérais vraiment que ce temps s'allonge de 4 ans de plus. En tout cas, vous aurez eu le temps de faire ce qu'a fait Vladimir Poutine d'ailleurs, ce que j'aurais souhaité. Très franchement, je sais, je ne vais pas me faire des amis, hein, donc pas beaucoup d'amis en tout cas, enfin quelques-uns peut-être, en disant ça, mais oui, je l'aurais souhaité, et pourrait pouvoir rester plus longtemps, mais toujours est-il, voilà, les choses en sont là où elles sont. J'attends encore un miracle, je ne sais pas quelle tournure il prendra, mais j'attends encore, j'espère encore un peu un miracle, pour que ce qui est juste, ce que le peuple américain a décidé, soit enfin honoré. C'est pas parce que Donald Trump apparemment perdu, je dis bien apparemment perdu les élections, il ne les a pas perdues dans les faits. Et ça a juste été la supercherie à marcher jusqu'au bout. Voilà. Donc, voilà, c'est pas parce qu'il a perdu, entre guillemets, qu'il avait tort. Hein. C'est pas parce que le mal a gagné qu'il a raison. Voilà. Donc, je vais essayer de faire plus souvent des vidéos que j'espère seront un petit peu regardées quand même. Jusqu'à présent, j'ai eu très très peu d'audience. Peut-être pas des sujets qui plaisent, ou alors pas des opinions sur ces sujets qui plaisent, mais voilà, je vais au moins délivrer mon âme, parce que c'est pour ça, c'est ça mon but finalement maintenant. Changer le monde, ma foi, il faut avoir beaucoup de force pour changer le monde. Je n'ai pas cette prétention, mais ma véritable motivation, eh bien c'est ça, délivrer mon âme. Et c'est ça depuis le début que j'ai fait ces vidéos, c'est de délivrer mon âme. Voilà, me laver les mains du sang de ceux qui ne voudront pas entendre. Alors après, je dois faire confiance à Dieu que voilà, l'audience viendra s'il le veut. Voilà. Pour l'instant, je sais qu'on me prend mes statistiques, donc je ne peux même pas estimer l'audience réelle. Je n'en ai aucune idée. Euh, ma longue vidéo est restée à 10 vues depuis le début que je l'ai mise en ligne. Donc je sais que c'est les 10 vues que moi j'ai fait. Mais je sais aussi que j'en ai fait de l'extérieur après, depuis, à partir d'appareils, d'autres appareils qui ne m'appartenaient pas et donc elles ne sont pas apparentes. Alors voilà quoi. C'est, je sais que des Russes sont sur mes appareils informatiques, donc sont des voisins d'ailleurs là où j'habite. Des Russes, des Slaves, enfin Slovaques, Polonais, un petit peu tout ça. La tambouille. Mais voilà, donc j'ai été mise, enfin nos deux ordinateurs, celui de mon fils et moi, on a été mis sous contrôle parental. Donc pour pouvoir faire ça, il faut déjà avoir les moyens de le faire. Nous ont mis sous contrôle parental à partir d'un appartement voisin. Donc je ne peux pas faire tout ce que je veux, je ne peux pratiquement rien faire. Je fais beaucoup de choses à l'extérieur, mais je sais très bien que tout ce qui est de quelque importance dans le domaine, ben pour BlackRock par exemple, etc., je sais quelles bêtes ils ont à leur disposition et il est possible que certaines des choses que je suis appelé à dire ou à faire euh, les dérangent ou en tout cas les intéressent. À part ça, à part m'empoisonner avec des médicaments, j'en ai pas beaucoup de retours, mais, euh, mais voilà. Je sais que je m'apprête, enfin ce que je suis en train de faire, qu'il ait ou non beaucoup beaucoup de répercussions, est dangereux pour moi. J'en assume entièrement le risque et parce que je ne pourrais pas faire autrement, tout simplement. Voilà, je dois dénoncer, je dois dénoncer. Je suis très timide pour le faire, modeste, j'ai pas beaucoup de force et d'impact, mais je dois le faire. Voilà. Alors, donc, prier et jeûner si l'on peut. Hein. Moi-même, j'ai pas encore réussi les 3 jours de jeûne total que j'espère arriver à faire un jour. Je le confesse. Mais bon, je suis quand même obligée de le dire parce que j'ai ça au cœur et puis si je le fais pas, ben, je suis en porte-à-faux avec ma conscience. Donc, comme je dis, c'est délivrer mon âme. Après, si moi je n'en ai pas les bénéfices, c'est bien quelqu'un d'autre peut-être les aura. Et puis voilà. Puis bon, même s'il n'y a qu'une seule personne qui entend ça puis qui le fait, etc. Eh ben, ça vaut la peine de l'avoir dit. Voilà. Je n'ai donc je n'ai donc aucun crédit, aucun honneur à ça, rien du tout. Euh, pour l'instant, je suis très partiellement, comment dire, très, très partiellement satisfaite de moi à ce niveau-là. Voilà, donc au niveau que je professe pourtant. On fait chacun comme on peut. je l'ai dit d'ailleurs, qu'on m'accorde le droit d'être sous la grâce, moi aussi. Voilà, mais par contre, alors, je vais peut-être m'avancer un petit peu plus dans les sujets qui touchent ma propre vie, parce que ma propre vie, elle est complètement liée à la mafia. Et mon combat pour m'en sortir, si c'est possible, je ne sais même pas, j'avais espéré avoir des alliés, je viens de découvrir aujourd'hui, en plus de la mauvaise nouvelle, de, de ce qui se passe de l'autre côté de l'océan, je viens d'apprendre que voilà, des personnes sur qui je comptais ne peuvent malheureusement pas s'impliquer. Donc je suis laissée comment dire, au bon vouloir. Je suis laissée au bon vouloir de la France et de mon propre pays, qui ne m'a jamais soutenue dans mon combat, où j'ai beaucoup dénoncé. Bah, évidemment, quand vous allez raconter à ceux qui font le mal qu'il y a un mal qui se fait, ils vont pas y prêter grande attention, ils vont en tout cas pas vous aider à vous en sortir. Malheureusement, c'est ça, c'est pour ça que j'avais misé plus sur un autre grand frère. Voilà. Maintenant, mon propre pays me laisse tomber, mais Dieu, lui, ne laisse tomber personne. Alors c'est pour ça que je vais continuer ces vidéos. Je vous ai expliqué pourquoi je pense que ces 4 personnes-là, parce que c'est plus 3 maintenant, ce sera 4. Je pense vraiment que M. Farage est également digne de nos prières, enfin les mérites et nous, dont on a besoin. Parce que si l'Angleterre réussit ce Brexit, ça va changer quelque chose aussi pour le reste du monde, et peut-être pour des pays comme la Suisse. Parce que ça, il faut dénoncer aussi. Parce que la Suisse, elle, soi-disant, elle ne fait pas partie de l'Europe, mais elle fait partie de l'Europe. Elle est pire même que si elle faisait partie de l'Europe. Parce qu'elle en a, elle en a les obligations. Elle en a beaucoup d'obligations, peut-être même plus encore envers l'Europe que les pays européens n'en ont entre eux. Mais en tout cas, elle les a toutes, mais elle n'a aucun bénéfice de ceux qui, de bénéfice d'être dans l'Europe. Donc de toute façon, que vous vouliez ça, on vous donnera ça. Voilà. S'ils ont décidé. Et c'est ce qui se passera en Amérique avec Joe Biden. Avec Joe Biden. Ça va être comme ça. Ça va être l'exemple de la dictature, parce que maintenant, ils installent la dictature. On le voit bien avec le Covid. J'en ferai pas une vidéo là ici, c'est censé être une introduction. Mais je voulais expliquer pourquoi ces 4 personnes. Parce que ces 4 personnes, elles ont eu le courage d'aller contre le deep state, la mafia, qui s'exprime et qui étend ses tentacules à partir de nos administrations, de nos pays, de nos politiques, de nos milieux de pouvoir. Voilà. C'est eux qui sont derrière, en Suisse. Nos chers présidents sont des marionnettes, c'est évident. Notre président de l'année dernière a essayé ce qu'il a pu, mais il y a une réalité derrière hein, qui nous rattrape toujours. Donc voilà. Voilà. Donc devant toute rigmarole politique, moi j'espère encore, mais je n'en ai pas la possibilité pour l'instant, j'espère que ça va changer. J'espère trouver du vrai. Il n'y a pas de vrai. C'est pas pour autant qu'il ne faut pas s'y intéresser. C'était mon attitude pendant très longtemps. J'en fais teshuva, j'ai envie de dire. Je, je m'en repens. Voilà. Enfin, c'est vrai qu'il faut s'y intéresser. Et donc, j'ai commencé de délivrer mon âme. Je vais continuer de délivrer mon âme. Je vais continuer de dénoncer. J'ai dénoncé j'ai lancé des coups d'épée dans l'eau, quoi, pendant si longtemps. Et dans le vide. J'ai dénoncé dans le vide. Hein, je souffle mon petit sifflet, là, je souffle dans mon petit sifflet, mais il fait pas beaucoup de bruit, mon petit sifflet. Hein, donc, mais je vais continuer, voilà. Je vais continuer et puis je vais changer de méthode, essayer de, de le faire de cette façon, en espérant qu'il y aura un certain impact quand même. Parce que si je parle de ces choses politiques, c'est pas parce que j'aime la politique, je déteste la politique. J'ai toujours détesté la politique. Si je parle de ces choses politiques, c'est parce que j'ai compris enfin, après si longtemps, ce que les juifs savent depuis toujours d'ailleurs, et ce que les chrétiens disent, mais sans y croire, que le paradis sur terre, enfin le paradis qu'on aimerait tous bien quand même finalement, d'une manière ou d'une autre, en ces termes ou en d'autres termes, qu'importe, on aimerait le paradis sur terre, on aimerait être heureux quand même, eh bien ça doit se faire sur cette terre. Et ça veut dire que la politique n'est pas étrangère. Donc j'espère que qu'en guise d'introduction, ça suffira. Si jamais quelqu'un veut m'aider à traduire dans d'autres langues, ce que je dis, soit par des sous-titres, je ne pourrais pas vérifier toutes les langues. Donc, mais si quelqu'un veut, eh bien, vous pouvez m'écrire et puis me le soumettre, et puis je le ferai vérifier par quelqu'un. J'aimerais beaucoup pouvoir traduire au moins en anglais. Je n'ai pas le temps de le faire moi-même, mais j'aimerais bien pouvoir traduire au moins en anglais, soit par sous-titres ou par dubbing, ce que, les sujets que j'espère aborder sous peu. Alors, merci de m'avoir écouté pendant cette demi-heure. Voilà, on est à 30 minutes, plus encore un petit bout que je vais peut-être rajouter du début. Donc, on est à 40 bonnes minutes. Pour une introduction, c'est bien suffisant. Et puis, à bientôt, j'espère. Priez pour moi. Quant à moi, je prie pour vous.